Not sure if we've got most of our board members who were planning to attend here yet. I'm trying to scan the group. I see Jolie. That's great.
Heather's here.
Heather, great.
Thomas here. I'm just off video because I'm going to be driving here in a minute.
I understand. All right.
And Open Chain Law Group is here. I'm assuming that's Suzanne.
Yes.
Okay.
Great. Great. Well, in the interest of time, I'm going to suggest we jump into that. First of all, thank you to the Board of Visitor members for we just had to schedule the meetings. Didn't have a lot of time to be checking with everyone, so I appreciate that. And the real goal here is to get feedback from members of the both Student Affairs and Academic Affairs Committee on provisions of the strategic plan that enter in kind of to your jurisdictions. Certainly, I'd encourage board members to make comments on other parts as well. Many of you are being invited to other people's, other committees as well. So you'll have an opportunity there as well. It's really just meant to have really good focused interaction with the board and members of the strategic planning groups. We have so many people, I'm not going to take time to make introductions, but we have both leadership of the overall strategic plan, as well as we have visioning team leadership here as well. So plenty of people to take your feedback and plenty of people to answer questions you might have. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Oram to kind of walk you through some questions and also to provide a little bit of overview in case you haven't had a chance to really dig into the reports, but we're hoping that you have. So Chris, I'll turn things over to you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. And we, again, these committee meetings over the next few days are really intended to be a conversation and to receive feedback from members of the Board of Visitors to help inform the current draft and the current work we're doing. I'm Chris Oram. I'm the Executive Director for Planning, Analytics, and Institutional Research here at JMU, and it's one of my primary responsibilities to help facilitate the plan, so the development of the plan. And so it's been really a team effort as well, and joined by many members of the lead team as well as the vision teams. Again, just to give a few minutes, in case you haven't had a chance to look in, there's a fair amount of material for these meetings, so I wouldn't expect even in the few minutes I might give to try to give folks a chance to orient themselves to the materials. We've tried to put together a list of questions that might be beneficial for us to hear from you all as members of the Academic Excellence and Student Affairs committees. But we'll attempt at least to give kind of an overview of the plan itself, where we are with it. I know that many of you all have heard about the pillars, but maybe haven't had a chance to kind of dive into some of the elements that are available in the plan. Just a little bit of context, the current draft that you're working off of is labeled as the January 2026 version. This version was really developed back in November with some slight modifications in January, which is why it's labeled as that. It was really developed before, so the draft that you have does not have any input necessarily from vision teams, any of the recommendations that they're still working on their final reports, but was really developed and has not been modified since then. We didn't necessarily want several different versions of the plan out and about, and so we're really working off of this version until we get through this level of feedback that we've been receiving, and then we'll incorporate all that feedback into the next version of the plan. We're really hoping to use these conversations to inform the next version, which will then be another chance to be reacted to by the board on the 23rd at your retreat. Just an overview of how the plan is structured. It involves the 2040 vision. This vision is relatively lengthy at this point, but it kind of speaks to the overall kind of direction that we're identifying the university to go, and then followed by a series of metrics. Those metrics, again, are still in draft form, and you all have seen, a number of you who are on the strategic planning committee have likely seen a slightly more detailed version where it involves where we are currently, a 2030 benchmark, and then a 2040 benchmark. But in the draft plan, it just identifies the 2040 metrics that we're looking for. Then the heart of the plan is really around these 4 pillars, and they speak to different elements of the student or of the university experience that we're really driving towards over the next 15 years. As President Jim has talked about, there's a 2040 vision that is more of a long range vision, and then the pillars kind of speak to what are the first 5 years of the plan. What do we need to do over the next 5 years to position us to be prepared to be in a spot where we can hit that 2040 vision and those metrics that are placed there. And a lot of the work in the pillars and really fleshing out some of the strategies and thinking through that's where the vision teams have really done the majority of their work, has been focused on the bullet points and the elements underneath these pillars to really help us think through what are those strategies going to be, how are we going to achieve these, where is there overlap, what changes, what maybe is unrealistic in its current form, but what would be a reasonable approach to accomplishing some of these things. There are, with the pillars, there's one that's just focused on really the student experience. And that might be where a lot of our conversation is today, perhaps in that pillar as well as the second pillar, although I don't want to limit a conversation in terms of some of the questions or feedback that you may have. But the first pillar as it relates to the student experience, especially under this Madison Promise idea. Many of you have heard of this Madison Promise idea, but it's this idea that those who come to JMU, who experience JMU, who leave JMU with a degree, you're going to be promised 2 things. There's 2 guarantees. One is that you're going to be guaranteed that you'll be able to have a positive career outcome within 12 months of graduating. And another is that you're going to leave with certain skills for the employers who employ JMU graduates, that our JMU graduates are going to have a certain set of these power skills that if not, we'll take the student back and we'll retrain, and we'll continue to work with them on the specific set of skills. There's a number of different elements underneath the Madison Promise and this particular pillar. It really speaks to some of the strategies. What are we going to do within the student experience to help ensure that these guarantees make sense and come to fruition? Things like, making sure students have work-based learning experiences, exploring what it would look like to have a 4-year or a tiered model for mentorship, a number of different elements. And what would it look like to have a multi-credit problem-solving course within your first year to be able to get out there in the community and work with community partners to explore what that looks like. So there's a number of different elements within that first pillar. The second pillar is really focused on our path as a research institution, really focusing on both undergraduate research and maintaining a focus on our undergraduate experience, while also exploring where are those strategic elements, what are the strategic programs and ways in which we can grow our graduate enterprise, and what does that look like over the next 5 to 10 to 15 years. The third pillar really focuses on partnerships. How do we become a preferred partner for the Shenandoah Valley, the region, the state, the nation? In what ways does that look like? How do we spur innovation? How do we work across different industries and government and nonprofits to explore ways that we can partner and really be an effective player in whatever arena that might lend itself to? And then finally, as we look to the fourth one, and this is the one that the board has provided some input already about the language around the pillars, which is creating an innovative campus community. And while a lot of this deals with the infrastructure and how do we think about reimagining the physical space on campus, much of the strategy is around the different systems and elements. How do we become good partners with the community? How do we improve ways for folks outside of JMU to be able to get onto campus? How do we add to the physical infrastructure, increase student housing, drive a lot of these different strategies that are within that idea of what does it mean to be an innovative campus community in higher education? So President Jim asked me to just kind of give an overview of the plan and the pillars, and maybe a little bit more detail than what you may have seen or that we've talked about in various Board of Visitors meetings. We posed a few questions related to academic excellence and student affairs to the plan, and you all have those. I can start by asking those, or I would really like to just open it up to feedback from members of the board to see, after having a chance to read through the materials, what questions, what feedback do you have as it relates to academic excellence and student affairs in the charge of your committees as it relates to the current draft plan or the work of the vision teams?
Chris, I'll just share. I don't know that I have questions specifically. I love the idea of the Madison Promise. I think that's I think it's tangible, and I think it's for employers as well as students and their parents as they're considering JMU. I think we have something similar at my kids' school. It's called the Portrait of a Graduate, and being able to articulate what do you get from a JMU graduate, I think is powerful. How you operationalize that is, the accountant in me always has that question, but I think it's very powerful to be able to put that into words. So I love that as a piece of it. And I think the continued focus that we have of engaging students on the campus, and I know there will be more discussion in the master plan of how we keep students on campus for longer and make sure we have the facilities to do that. But I think that piece, that focus of keeping our students engaged on campus is will expand across all the pillars and really facilitate all of them. So I think those are two really key pieces for me.
Thank you.
This is Kay. I feel really badly that I don't have anything substantive to add at this point. I thought it was very well done, particularly from the perspective of someone who has hired college students. And the promise that we would have a student that not only has a diploma in their hands, but also has skills that they can bring to the workplace right away is so important. I'd like to be more helpful, but it really is very good.
Okay, I agree with you on the tangible skills. I think the that promise is something that we've all experienced when we hire students from JMU, and it can often be hard to describe to others who aren't familiar with JMU what sets those graduates apart from others. And so I think having that to go along with that really helps support the student in recruiting and other things.
This is Jolie. So I think that it was well thought out and well put together. I do think that we continue to make a concerted effort to reach out to other companies, other employers. Being on the board for the business school, we had good resources, but I don't think our bench was as deep as it should be. And I think across all schools, we need to continue outreach, engage new companies, different ideas, so that we have more of a portfolio for our students when they're looking for internships and employment after graduation.
I was going to bring that point up down under partnerships, but this is a good place to say it as well.
If I may ask, and one of the things, in addition to the power skills, and as we talk about the Madison Promise, one of the teams has been working on kind of an overarching framework for kind of what calling this kind of framed as like JMU leads well, and each letter stands for something as well. And this is one of the summaries in your packet of materials. But it also brings up the idea of these JMU distinctives. You know, one of the things that we've heard through some of our feedback is the idea of that the power skills are incredibly important for, you know, the necessary, one of the key aspects of a college education, which is to go out to be able to do something, whether it's a job or whether it's more school. That's important. And so we've kind of highlighted the power skills as those skills that are necessary for employment. But then as part of the JMU experience, there's also these JMU distinctives, which is what we're kind of coining them at this phase. And this, and I'd love for any of the Vision team members who may be here from there to jump in if I get something not quite right in terms of how you're framing it. But this notion of, you know, there's certain elements of a JMU experience that I think when you think of them together, really makes us a distinctive experience. And that includes leader development, some of the things we do for developing leaders through our students, ethical reasoning and the work that we do on that, academic innovation, academic, and some of the special ways in which we promote that. There's civil discourse and deliberative dialogue. And so that element. Service and service for the public good, I believe, is the S. And then there's that overall notion of well, like being well. We're both excellent in these ideas, but also wellness and the importance of well-being and the importance that we place on that. And we're thinking about this in terms of kind of an overarching kind of structure in terms of some of those key elements that really we can think about when it comes to the experience that a student has at JMU, that they're going to come and they're going to get these elements as part of their experience. And I'm just curious how that, you know, just that kind of 30-second overview of that particular concept, how does that resonate with you, especially as it relates maybe to the discussion of power skills, kind of an above and beyond the power skills themselves, but just interested in some of the feedback or thoughts about that particular framework.
Yeah, Chris, I don't know that I have any specific comments to share. I mean, I like that framework. I think it's very consistent with what our students will see once they get out into the workplace, of, you know, especially with large companies, if they're working for strong companies that have similarly those values. I think you often see it with an acronym, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that form, but I think that concept of these foundational core values, if you will, I think that is a good thing to introduce to them. I also think from a recruiting perspective, as we think about jobs after college, that format is also something that will be familiar to those that will be recruiting students. But as far as the specific content, I think those are the things that are there, I think, are what I would be looking for and what I would expect to see. You know, I know these things will go more layers than just the words in the acronym, but I think, you know, as we think about ethical reasoning and civil discourse and these things, I think somewhere within there, and I apologize, I don't have the acronym and the details in front of me right now, but you know, ethical use of AI and things like that, I think is certainly something, just given where we are in the world, we'll probably want to see that you know, woven in there as well. That'll certainly be something that our students will face.
I guess as we think about the plans itself, specifically as it relates to the areas of academics and student affairs and just the student experience, whether it's anything I shared, and I can speak to more details in the plan, but that, you know, certainly I've kind of given the 10,000-foot view, but can go a little bit deeper. But in your own review or in the thoughts of the plan, is there anything that has, and maybe the Madison Promise is one example, but are there other elements that feel distinctive about this plan as it relates, relative to our peers? Does it seek to go bold enough in terms of what you as the board are thinking, particularly as it relates to the areas around academics? Is there something that you want to make sure is seen in the final plan as it relates to these particular committees that maybe is there or is not there?
I was waxing eloquently for about 2 to 3 minutes, but I was on mute, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
you missed it all.
Oh, I'm so
But,
sorry.
oh, no, it's all me. What I was to summarize, what I was saying is I really like the structure. I like what's there. And this, I'm sure, is at another layer and expanded, but something that talks about the mental strength of our students, the work ethic, that I know that when I get a James Madison student, I'm getting someone that's going to come early, stay late, get the job done, because that's a part of the culture and a part of what we are trying to inculcate into our students. Because,
great.
you know, skills can be built, but I'll tell you, they need that opportunity during the college experience to really understand what it's like to work hard and do a good job.
Okay, I really like that, and we've heard that pretty consistently from employers across the Commonwealth. They talk about them being more grounded, more centered, and strong work ethic, and so I think it reflects who we are. And I like the idea of communicating that both externally, but mostly internally, that this is part of what it means to be a JMU student. And you're going to learn those skills to be focused and put in the extra effort at the university. So
I said it much better the first time.
Okay, I was able to read your lips. It was very very well spoke. To just piggyback off of what President Jim said, I also think that it is so important in bringing the kids back on campus for the 2 years experience, because again, that builds the synergy. And I've sponsored and attended several things as an alumni on campus, and everything that I've attended is just so well done, so well thought out. And I'm always sad to see that the attendance isn't as strong as it should be. We've got a great message, and we offer so many different ways for our students to become young adults and launch them into the workplace. But if they are off campus, it's hard to get them back on. So again, in everything that we're doing with this, with the pillars, et cetera, and everything we're doing, bringing the kids back on campus for that mandatory 2 years, I think is going to help bring all of this to fruition.
And that sort of gets us down to pillar number 4 as well, as we talk about the infrastructure and the need for dorms and the ability to really host them on campus in a meaningful way.
We folks, I'm sorry, President Jim, go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the things that's been really quite enjoyable and fun is when we bring all the vision team leaders together, you hear how all these plans are intertwined. They're completely interdependent, and they've really enjoyed it as well. We're trying to come up with a graphic that has this notion of interwoven, and if you pull a thread out, the plan starts to fall apart. So I think it truly is one of the strengths that each of them contribute to the others, and it's the synergistic nature of these things coming together in a relatively short period of time that I think will make this plan really soar. So I appreciate that observation, Kay and Jolie, about how these things really do connect.
Some of the and again, I'm just trying to guide conversation a little bit as you all think, but just checking to make sure that no one is speaking on mute, that I'm gonna as I talk. But we have several draft metrics related to what we would call maybe student success, right? And I know we did a presentation at the last board meeting about some of these metrics and how we define success, but things like retention, like we're looking to the draft metric right now has us trying to get our retention rate from about 91.5% up to 95% by 2040, and then having certain benchmarks along the way. Our graduation rate right now, our 4-year graduation rate is right at about 68%. And we're talking about the draft plan says it's about 80 to get it to 80%. Some internal looking at kind of what might be aspirational, but also realistic might put that number final metric maybe closer to 75%. But we're still kind of looking at what some of those levels might be. Career outcomes, right? This ties directly to a lot of the work and some of the strategies that we're talking about as it relates to the Madison Promise, but also other things like making sure students have access to a work-based learning experience throughout their time. The mentorship component of trying to explore what would it look like to have kind of a tiered system for mentorship throughout the experience. Putting a focus on undergraduate research and really building out that infrastructure to help undergrads have experience, not just, as I think we've used an example, it's not just cleaning test tubes, but really getting in there with faculty and really exploring what that looks like. And those being the strategies to help us reach some of these more extensive targets. There's other things like research, right? Not just making sure that we are leaders in undergraduate research, but also in terms of making sure that we're putting we're bringing our research expenditures and the amount of money we're investing in research is growing and continues to grow, and that our output as it relates to graduate programs and doctoral degrees continues to grow. One of the questions we pose is just, are those sufficiently ambitious and achievable in your mind? Are there other metrics that you feel like we should consider, or was there anything in terms of the metrics as you look at it that give you pause, or that you're really excited about us moving in that direction?
So being on the academic board, we've had several undergraduate and graduate students present to us. And I'm always blown away. I know that the JMU student is exceptional, but I walk out of that room going, wow, that was just amazing. And for us to be able to take that, in my opinion, times 100 and have that many more students have that resource available to them, because again, what they're doing, like you said, they're not just cleaning test tubes. They're really producing something and really digging in and being, thinking about something that when they present, I'm like, wow, I never even thought about that. So again, I think that that's such a strong area that I would like to see us concentrate on, is providing more opportunity for research for undergraduate, graduate students, because again, the JMU student is exceptional, and when given the opportunity, the outcome is just extraordinary.
And I guess the short answer for me on the metrics is I thought they were excellent. I thought they were achievable, and in some cases they were really stretch goals. So.
Yeah, I would echo all that. I didn't really have anything to add. I think it strikes the right balance between achievable, but stretching us a bit.
We stay on the topic of research a little bit. One of the areas that I know we're exploring is how do we be strategic? And again, I'm emceeing this conversation, but I welcome anyone from the vision teams that relate to this, or the strategic plan co-chairs, if you want to step in and ask and continue on with this conversation, by all means. But I know one of the questions that one of the vision teams has is, where do you all as members of the boards maybe see the greatest opportunity or the greatest risk in elevating graduate research as a defining institutional priority. And maybe along those lines, are there areas of exploration that we should at least be mindful of? With the team and others have certainly identified different areas of potential growth or expansion or ideas where we can really hone in on leveraging our expertise, whether it's in the region or as an institution, towards growing our graduate enterprise. But again, interested in your thoughts on what you all see as maybe the greatest opportunity or risk in elevating our graduate programs or graduate research as a priority.
I'll just share the one thought I have on that is I completely agree with Jolie on providing that opportunity to students, graduate or undergraduate. I'm not opposed to increasing our graduate research opportunities and graduate studies. I do see a risk of that happening at the expense of our undergraduate students. I think JMU has a strong reputation, and rightly so, for what we provide in an undergraduate degree and to our undergraduate students. And I think many other universities that we would not currently consider our peer institutions that are known for graduate research and doctoral programs, that is, I won't say it's at the expense of their undergraduate programs, but you often hear of undergrad classes that are not taught by professors, things like that, undergraduates who don't have the opportunity to do research until they get to a graduate level. So that would be my only concern there. Is certainly, I think expansion could be well placed and could be an asset to the university, but I think it has to stay centered around that undergraduate experience.
I 100% agree with Heather. What I would love to see us do, and maybe this would help with the cost, is even collaborating with universities across the mountain or south of us. For example, we're younger in our engineering, reaching out to one of the universities that's strong in engineering and do a undergraduate research. And then we're extremely strong, in the healthcare, the nursing programs, and maybe sponsoring something over the summer where we collaborate for the undergraduate students. So anyway, just a thought.
Might pause for a second and just I'm looking at some of the other questions that the team that the various vision teams have done. But did the vision teams, based on the questions that you all pose, does this conversation kind of spark any questions that you have or anything that you might like to bring up? And while I wait for someone, I'll continue to look at our questions and see what else might make it worthwhile for our conversation. President Jim, would you like to talk? I know that the work college and the student work to learn program has been something that you've brought up and has surfaced in a number of the town halls. And I'm just wondering if maybe you could spend just a minute kind of sharing kind of the thoughts around that particular initiative. And I know that there's a vision team that's working specifically on what a pilot program might look like, but this might, really certainly has implications for our student experience. There's different avenues in which this affects the student. Do you mind just talking for a minute about that particular initiative, and then just interested in their reactions to that as from the board?
Certainly, and it's another one of those that intertwines many key things that students are needing. The idea really was inspired. I was a senior Kellogg fellow probably 30 years ago. And I was able to study some different institutional models, and one of them was Berea College as an example of the work college model. In a true work college, you have to be low enough income to be admitted. Berea won't even admit you unless you're a Pell Grant recipient. Um, and students don't pay tuition, they work. They work at the university, everything from all the typical things. They have farms, they have handicraft stores, they run hotels, restaurants, lots of different things. It's also, I think, on a per capita basis, one of the best endowed institutions in the country, right up there with Harvard. But it's a model of excellence. So we're never going to be a work college. That's not our mission. That's not where we're at. But my goal was to try to learn from that, to try to create access and opportunity, particularly for low-income students. So this idea of really pushing student work solves a lot of problems. We really want to have a work-based learning requirement for the university. Typically, that's an internship. That's kind of, but it could be a co-op or other things. One of the challenges that we have is we're a much bigger institution given the size of our community. By contrast to my previous town, there just aren't as many large companies based in Harrisonburg or immediately close by. So that creates a challenge of finding that. And then there's other pieces to that that we can get into about how can we open up a lot of internships during the regular school year, not just the summer in Northern Virginia, which runs into a housing issue. If a student has a 12-month lease in Harrisonburg, and if they want to do an internship fall semester in Fairfax, they got to figure out a way to get maybe a full year lease up there. So it becomes very expensive. So there's some living arrangement issues and how do we get them back and forth, which is partly why the on-campus housing can help create flexibility for that. It's also a money issue for the campus. And there's some of these positions that we have a lot of turnover. Landscaping or grounds crew, we have turnover. It's hard to retain people. Frontline administrative support kinds of positions. And I can go all the way up and down the line of what are jobs that full-time employees would be taking, but we're having problems keeping them. So it's not a plan. We're not looking at layoffs or any of these others. But let's say you had a groundskeeping crew of 7 people, and over time we lost maybe 5. And so we convert those 5 jobs to maybe 20 student jobs, 4 for every one, working at least 10 hours a week. And then the remaining 2 groundskeepers, we pay them maybe more, maybe 20, 30% more, and they become mentors and student supervisors. And most of their focus is around teaching, how to go about doing things, running the big equipment, what's the importance of showing up and all that. Maybe some of these, I don't know about landscaping, but many of them could become internships, but they become opportunities for students to work on campus. Research is very clear if students work on campus. Again, retention, graduation rates are way up. Their focus is on their education, not in showing up at McDonald's to flip burgers in a rigorous schedule. Some of the savings comes from, we pay a great deal for employee benefits. I haven't looked at ours, but typically, for particularly the lower paid positions, the employee benefits can be up to 60% of the total salary. So even if we redeployed all of the salary dollars to pay our full-time employees more and pay the student employees a decent wage, but you can take that 60% of the cost of that, of the benefits, and I can use that to improve compensation and other things, fund other things around the university, but you're giving the students a meaningful opportunity. This plays a little bit into one of Bob Culver's points, which is we should view all of us are educators on the university campus, and it helps to instill that mission right at the front lines all the way up to obviously the president. You want them to be educators. So it helps students pay for college. It helps with our student outcomes. It helps create greater pride in the campus to see other students who are working, engaged, and maintaining, whatever it is. It could be frontline administrative support as well. So there's lots of wins around this. And frankly, with an employee shortage, it allows some of these other employees to be employed in other areas. We're having problem keeping them. So if we're going to have constant turnover, why not use our own students to step in? So that's just one little example, one of the threads that we have a vision team. It's complicated. It will require training of mentors. It requires, good systems to keep track of it. Let me use one other example. This is the same group that tends to plow snow. And, there's an advantage to being able to call a full-time employee and saying, it's snowing, you have to come in. Well, here, instead of having one you're depending on, you could call up to four. And if you have a lot of work that has to happen in a hurry, you can call all four in. And students are students, so maybe only three come in, but that's still 3 times as many hands when you have a snow event or you need to set up for a big concert in the basketball arena, or you need to move things where many hands make things more efficient and can get stuff done in a hurry. So that's just one little element, but the outcomes of work colleges are really quite significant. And, I'd like to have paths for our lowest income students not to actually have to borrow so that you can remove that whole barrier. Some of our lowest income students are afraid to borrow. They've seen what debt has done to their parents or other family members. And again, it's another barrier that can get removed.
And so one of the questions that was posed, is what are the board's thoughts, or is the board supportive of a pilot program as one of the recommendations, I think, putting forward, but just focused on in-state students with financial need, that may include a competitive application-based admissions process based on admission process, I believe, to the work college program, not to the university. But just really interested, I think, for the team, they're also interested in just what are your thoughts based on that description and just kind of the thought moving forward.
I'll start. This is Tom Galati. So when I was chairman of our school board, when my kids were small, and I was overseeing the finances of the school as well, there was a lot of families that just couldn't afford private school education, and they saw the value in private school education. So me being a deal maker of sorts, I thought, okay, well, how about, not the students per se, but the family, kind of does the same thing. We need a couple of maintenance guys that, know how to handle HVAC and electrical and plumbing issues and maybe even painting and so forth. So in lieu of, $2,500 a year, you more or less guarantee that, you'll spend 10 hours a month throughout the year doing X, Y, and Z. And that was a pilot program of sorts, but it was productive and I loved it. And so when President Jim was talking about this, and he's talked about it in the past, that's the first thing that came to mind for me. And so I think that it would be wonderful to have a pilot program whereby, low income students see the value in working for the university. And of course, it would be, like Jim said, in all different areas and different scopes and different hours and all of that stuff. But I love giving students the hands-on opportunity to say, okay, I don't want to go $100,000 in debt, and I can't afford to go here otherwise. So what does that look like? And giving them that opportunity to kind of work, it benefits both the student, their families, and the university. So I love the idea.
And I agree with you, Tom, 100%. And I was out to dinner a few nights ago with some alumni, and we were talking. So I have 4 children. My youngest, his business fraternity, for 3 years in a row, I had 3 young men living in our spare bedrooms because all of my kids have, they're all off and grown and having their own family. So I've got all these empty rooms. So for 3 summers, I had 3 of his business fraternity young men staying at our house. They had 2 of them had unpaid internships. One had a paid internship, but a lot of times when you want to get into, DC, perhaps on the Hill, et cetera, those are unpaid internships. So I was fine to house them. They were with us for 8 weeks. And the alumni that I was at dinner with we're in the same situation. We would love to sponsor these kids. It's 8 weeks in the summer. Normally is what the internship lasts. We would love to have them. So for a student that doesn't have the financial means and lives out of state or Southern Virginia or wherever, wants to be close, for example, I'm near DC, wants to be near Arlington, DC for those job opportunities, they have the ability to stay with us at basically no cost. So I'm sure there's a lot of hoops that would have to be jumped through for that, but there's a lot of us, again, the JMU alumni, the JMU student, we're all that secret sauce and we want to help each other.
Yeah, that's a great angle to think about it. I'm not sure we've talked about it through that lens of like, how do we engage alumni to help provide the house, to help with the housing, to help with the potential other elements that could really help make those types of experiences available to other students.
I loved it, and my husband loved having other people there to talk sports with. So
I love that idea. In my previous school, we had particularly alums who were in really big cities like New York and DC and others where there was connections back to various workplaces for those internships. I want to make sure that we're using particularly board members' time well, so we don't need to elongate it, but we're really working intentionally to make sure the board has multiple times to interact with these questions, to hear directly from our vision team leaders, and as we move towards our retreat in March, just want to make sure you've got an opportunity to provide input, to ask questions, and to redirect if there's some of the pieces of the plan that are heading in a direction you don't think is a good idea. We certainly really want to hear that. Any other thoughts? I'll give it an extra couple minutes to see if there's any board members that have additional questions or want to make any other comments.
I was talking on mute again. I was going to say in answer to Joey, I don't know exactly what to do with this thought. While I appreciate the opportunities provided to low-income students to be able to earn money, I don't want to miss the opportunity for middle class and upper middle class kids to mow the lawn.
Yep.
To know what it's like to have that work ethic. I'd love for you to make my grandson get out there and do some weeding on the quad. And it would be a great experience for him, and he ought not to miss that opportunity. So I don't know what that means or what that looks like, but as we think about it and talk about it, it's not just the low-income kids that need the opportunity to experience hands-on work, shoveling some snow and putting up some. I'll give you his phone number if you'd like to.
All right.
Hey, I completely agree. There's certainly a financial need for our low-income students, and I think it creates a great opportunity there. But I think there's a way this could be expanded beyond that, whether it's paid jobs or even service opportunities, to serve the campus through fraternities, sororities, other things. But Kay, I completely agree with you. We can all use that lesson of cleaning and working, and that it's more than sitting in an office or whatever those students think that their future work life might look like.
I'll pay you to make him go to work.
There you go. Well, to be clear, actually the plan doesn't really restrict it. We've talked about it that way because part of it is to open doors and be part of an admissions package.
Sure.
So the idea is for the lowest income, we're willing to offer you this much in grant, this much in research, and you're going to have a work component to it. And that way we can zero out any expectation of borrowing. I've done similar things in my last two institutions. And, the good news is, everybody, a lot of people want to take advantage of the work for the various reasons you've said. By the way, I've maybe said this to the board already. Winona State, the foundation fund that received the most number of contributions was Amy's Flower Fund. And Amy was one of the landscapers. She maintained the greenhouses, propagated all the flowers of this beautiful campus in that greenhouse. And we ran the entire grounds crew with a woman who did the flower beds and an arborist. And between them, they use entirely a student workforce. I use another example, and please don't share it outside of here because, there's a company involved and these are good people as well. But like the events management staff, we contract for that, whether it's at RKMC or RMC, whatever that is. 2 schools ago, our entire security force were students. We didn't have armed police, sworn officers. It was just a student police force. And so I know that there are many, many, many opportunities, particularly as the board knows, we think about the stadium complex and additional aspects of that. We want to have real opportunities for the Hart School of Hospitality, for sports management. We want to whenever there's a need, let's see if we can first figure out a way to make it a learning opportunity for a student and figure out if we can get the structures in place to do that, as opposed to we need to hire more people, we need to contract with somebody, etc.
President Jim, I just wanted to thank you very much, you and Chris and the vision teams. As the rector, this is definitely part of the vision that Terry and I have had in order for the board to engage directly in the process before we have to adopt the plan and massage it. And so to the board members who participated today, I just want to say thank you. I know we're going to have this opportunity to have all of our committees be before you in this arena of engagement. I didn't interject because I wanted to hear so that I can help direct the discussions that we will have at the board retreat on the 23rd. But I've written a lot of notes, and there's going to be a lot of good discussion coming on the 23rd. And I thank you and Chris and the vision teams for all the hard work you've put into it to this point.
Thank you, Madam Rector. We do appreciate it and appreciated your leadership. Both you and Terry have done a great job. I've never seen a board this engaged, and I think it's going to be a much stronger plan. And to the faculty and staff and members of our team, having the board's engagement and involvement, that's where we help set the priorities to make sure all your hard work of putting this plan together can be embraced by the board and the resources and the things necessary to get it accomplished. So thank you again, Suzanne.
Thank you.
All right, we'll give people an extra 8 minutes off their schedule. I think we had it scheduled for an hour. And appreciate again everyone's continued involvement. You'll be invited to the other ones, and they'll try to focus on those topics. I understand you have multiple appointments, and this is a busy time. So if you can join us and would like to chime in for one of those other reports, feel free to do it. If you're busy because you've already sat on this one, I want to get written comments about anything relating to one of the other committees you're involved in, feel free to send that directly to me, and I will make sure that that gets raised and brought forward as well. Thank you again. Have a great day. Duke's men won last night. We got to win 5 more in a row to get into the NCAA tournament. The women have to win 3 in a row starting Saturday to be in the NCAA tournament. So go Dukes.
Go Dukes.
Go Dukes.
All right. See you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.